So welcome to part 2 of the August 2022. So for the first one, it's going to be keywords are average rate of change. As soon as you hear average rate of change, this formula should come to mind, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is also in the reference table, so you don't need to memorize it. As you're looking at this question, they're telling us that they want us to find the average rate of change from 2 to 4. So this is just a matter of matching. So if x is 2, right, our y is 20, so 2 comma 20 is our x1 y1, and then the second point is going to be at 4. So if we go up from 4, the number that matches with that is 60, so 4 comma 60 is going to be our x2 y2, and then we plug it into our formula, which is y2, so our y2 is 60 minus y1, which is 20, so 60 minus 20 over 4 minus 2. Hit enter in the calculator and you're going to get 20 as your answer. So the average rate of change from 2 to 4 is 20 units. Specifically, it's 20 miles. Okay. All right. Next one for 26. For question number 26, we have a keyword which is factoring completely. So whenever it says factor completely, we know that we're not going to have to just factor once. We're going to have to factor probably twice. So let me just go ahead and erase this so I can start this from scratch. A little salty because I just did this video and it erased, but it's okay. I'll do it again. So anytime we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, we just split it down the middle. You factor the left, you factor the right, and whatever's in the bubbles should be the same thing. So think about between x to the third and 2x squared. So x to the third is 3x's, and 2x squared is a 2 with 2 x's. So what is common, right? There are 2 x's that are common. So we're going to write x squared out here, and we're going to write down what's left, right? So there's 1x left, and then over here there's a minus sign. And if we take out the 2 x's, because they're common, there is a 2 that's left over. So if I take this and distribute it, I get this back, x cubed minus 2x squared. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I know that inside this bubble I have x minus 2, so I'm going to write it right off the bat. And what number am I going to need to place out here to make this true? When I distribute, something times x equals negative 9x, so I know that that's going to be negative 9. Negative 9 times negative 2 also is positive 18, so it works out. Okay. Once you get to this line right here, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the one that is common, right? So the one that's common here is going to be x minus 2 is the one that's common. So I'm going to take whatever is common and I'm going to write it once. So I wrote this x minus 2 once, right? And then I'm going to write down what's left over, right? So the x squared comes into this bubble and the minus 9 comes into this bubble. And again, I'm going to go back to what my keyword is, which it says completely. And I see that x squared minus 9 can be factored. That's a difference of perfect squares. So to get x squared, I put x, and to get the 9, 3 times 3, negative or a minus sign, a positive times a negative is a negative. So this is what is completely factored, right? X plus 3, parentheses, x minus 3, parentheses, x minus 2. If I were to take this and had plenty of time, I could FOIL this out and see if I get this back, and I will. All right, question number 27. All right, so since it says solve algebraically, I actually think that this might be beneficial just to go through from scratch. I do want to remind you that we did this earlier on throughout the year. So this is just something that we're going to have to like kind of go over again just to make sure that we refresh our memory and that we remember it. So the first thing I wanted to say is you could have taken this right here, plug this into y1 into y2 and got our answers, which is 7 over 2, and I believe it's no, it's 6 and 20. So you could have plugged that into the calculator and figured out that x is equal to 6, and then figured out what we don't have a y, but x is equal to 6 here is the point of intersection. But Since it says solve algebraically, we do want to do this algebraically. All right, so here, to get rid of this radical here, what we want to do is we want to square both sides, right? Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So the square root and the square cancel each other out, so you're left with 4x plus 1 is equal to 11 minus x squared means that you're going to have 11 minus x twice, parentheses 11 minus x, and I want you to FOIL this out using box method. When you do that, you're going to get 121 minus 22x plus x squared. Usually I like writing the x squared first, based off of from what I heard from people. You all like that as well. And then we want to move everything over to the other side. So this is going to be minus 4x minus 1. Minus 4x matches with this, minus 1. And so this cancels out, and I'm left with x squared minus 26x plus 120. So this is equal to 0. Since it says solve, I want to find out what x is. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 120 and that add to give me negative 26. So I showed you a shortcut in the calculator by going like this. So you go to your y equals and you type in 120 divided by x, because we're looking for the factors. And if you go to the table, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be 120 and add to be negative 26. So 1 and 120, that doesn't give us 26. 2 and 60 doesn't give us 26 when we add or subtract. 40 and 3 doesn't give us 26, but 30 and 4 do. But think about it, right? If we have 30 and 4 as our answers, this one of them had to be negative to add to give you a negative 26, and a negative times a positive is not a positive. So I know it cannot be 30 and 4. It's going to have to be, if I keep going down, 24 and 5 do not give us 26 when we add or subtract, but 20 and 6 do. So 20 and 6 minus 6 and minus 20 is going to be what we factor this to be, x minus 6. And we set them both equal to 0, which if we split it and we set them equal to 0, to make this true, all we have to do is switch the signs. So you get x is equal to 20 here, and you get x is equal to 6. So this is what we think it is, but our last step is we have to check it. So if I take the 20 and I plug it in here, 11 minus 20 is going to give me negative 9, and right, that's going to give me negative 9. And when I take the 20 and I plug it in for the other x, 4 times 20 is 80, plus 1 is 81. The square root of 81 does not equal negative 9, so x equals 20 does not work. However, if I take 6 and I plug it in, right, if I plug it back into the original, 6 actually does work, and if you were to look at the two graphs, they do intersect at 6, so x equals 6 is our only answer. If I went too quick for that, please let me know. For our next question, we have a division. We do need to remember from Algebra 1 that when we are dividing, we are subtracting exponents. So 17 over 8 minus 5 over 4. And we have to equal this to y to the n. So let's go. And with this whole thing, can't forget that it's raised to the negative 4th power. So let's take our calculator and plug that into the calculator. Put alpha y equals gets us a fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my fraction. So 17 over 8 minus 5 over 4. Alpha y equals again, option number 1, 5 over 4. And when I do that, I get 7/8. So I have y to the 7/8 raised to the negative 4 power is equal to y to the n. When I have a power to a power, I'm going to multiply these two. So I'm going to take my calculator and multiply the 7/8 by negative 4. And when I do that, I get negative 7 over 2. So I have y to the negative 7 over 2 is equal to y to the n. This is literally just matching, right? The y's are the same on the bottom. That means that my exponents are n is equal to negative 7 over 2. So n equals negative 7 over 2. because all I'm doing is I'm just matching. Okay, that's question number 28. All right, so question 29, I'm given cosine and I'm given cotangent. We haven't done a lot with cotangent, so I'm going to pause real quick, and I do want to remind you that tangent is equal to sine of the angle over the cosine of the angle. Cotangent is literally just the flip of this. So I'm going to flip these two. So that's going to be cos over sine. Okay. One of my students remembers this as cos on top, cotangent cos on top of sine. Okay. And they want us to figure out what the sine is in radical form. So basically all we have to do is substitute, right? So cotangent of A, they're telling us that that's equal to -3. So I'm putting -3 is equal to. The cosine of A, they're telling us is 3 over radical 10. And then we have a sine A on the bottom. So we need to find out what this sine A is. Just to refresh your memory, if there's no number on the bottom, we can put an imaginary 1. And when we have two fractions equal to each other, I can cross multiply, right? So this gets cross multiplied by this. So -3 times sine A is -3 sine A equals 1 times anything is itself, 3 radical 10. Okay. So now there are a couple of things that we could do here. You can say, okay, I want to try to get this sine A right here by itself. So to get this by itself, this is being held together by multiplication. I can divide both sides by -3. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So divide by -3. So this cancels out. So I'm left with sine of A is equal to 3 over -3 radical 10. Since they said simplest radical form, 3 divided by 3 cancels out to just a 1. So this is the same thing as 1 over negative radical 10. I can leave my answer like that if I want. So sine of A is equal to -1 over radical 10. Or I can multiply radical 10 on the bottom and on the top. And sine of A is also equal to negative radical 10 over 10. Either answer works, okay? All right, that is the next question. All right, so a couple of things to keep in mind as you read this. Average weight, the symbol for average is X with the line over it, or a U. And they're telling us that the mean is, or the average is 3.39. The standard deviation symbol is O with a little baseball cap. And they're telling us that the standard deviation is 0.55. Last year, 9256 babies were born, determined to the nearest integer. Oh, normal distribution. So we know we're going to have to do something with normal CDF. And determine to the nearest integer approximately how many babies weighed more than 4 kilograms. More than 4 kilograms, okay? So we're going to go to our calculator. And where is normal CDF, right? So normal CDF is, you see distribution right here. So you hit second bars, which is distribution, and option number 2 is normal CDF. So it says more than 4, so 4 is going to be our lowest. Any numbers more than 4, the largest number I can think of is 9999999. Our mean is, they told us 3.39, so we put that in. And our standard deviation is 0.55. And I put that in, and I hit enter and enter. So let's put in what I typed in, 9, a whole bunch of 9s, right? And then we did 3.39. And then we put 0.55 in, and we hit enter, and we got 0.133, what is it? 6955, 6955. Okay. So now as we read the question, it says, it doesn't just tell us to get a probability or a percent, right? It says how many babies. So as soon as it says how many babies, we have to take this number and we have to multiply it by the total number of babies, which is 9256. So 9256 is the total number. And so I take my calculator, hit times, and I put 9256, hit enter, and that's about 1,237 babies. 1,237 babies And the reason why I rounded it like that is because it says to the nearest integer. Okay, question 30. All right, so for question 31, the first thing we want to do when we get a two-way table like this is we want to go ahead and add all the numbers that we have, males, females, and then classic rock in this case is 78. That's the total number of classic rock. And we want to do the same thing for males and females. So if we add all the males, we're going to get 110. And if we add all the females, we're going to get 105. Okay, so it says, determine if the person is female and the person prefers classic rock are independent of each other. So think about when you're independent, no matter what happens, it doesn't affect you. So what we want to see is the probability of female equal to, is this equal to the probability of a female preferring classic rock? A female given classic rock, okay? That's what we want to see. So what is the probability of choosing a female, right? So probability of female is there are 105 females out of the total number of people, right? Males plus females. So we're going to take 105 plus 110 and we're going to add them together. And so when you put this into the calculator with 105 over 105 plus 110, you're going to get 21 over 43. 21 over 43 is the probability of females. So now the next one is probability of females given classic rock, right? So how many people who are females prefer classic rock? So females preferring classic rock is 36. So what I did over here is I went ahead and figured out there are 36 females who prefer classic rock out of whatever comes second, right? This is in the non-negotiable, so what comes second? Classic rock, right? What is the total number of classic rock? 78. So that's why I put this on the bottom. So let me go take my calculator. I already divided that one, but 21 divided by 43 is 0.488, okay? So this number right here is 0.488. And I want to check, is this number and this number, are they the same or are they different? If they're different, they are dependent. If they are the same, then they are independent. So can you tell, right? These two numbers right here are different so that they are dependent, which means that they're the same thing as not independent, right? If you're not independent, you are dependent or dependent. You can say one or the other. And the reason why is because the probability of females is not the same thing as probability of females given classic rock, okay? They're not the same thing, and so therefore you can say that they are not independent, aka they are dependent. All right, next question. So they want us to solve this algebraically, and again, if it didn't say the word algebraic, y1, y2, second calc, option number 5 is intersection. See where they intersect, okay? These actually happen to intersect in two places, but since they want us to do this algebraically, you remember this from Algebra 1, y equals this, so set them equal to each other. So 2x squared minus 7x plus 4 equals 11 minus 2x. Set them equal to each other. So we're going to move everything over to the other side. So plus 2x, minus 11, minus 11. So when we do this, this cancels out, and you're left with 2x squared minus 5x minus 7 equals 0. Okay, so this is AC method. AC method says we do A times C. We multiply them together, get negative 14. And negative 5 is our B term. So we're looking for two numbers that add to be negative 5 and multiply to be negative 14. Negative 7, positive 2 works. So I'm going to go back here. A, C, they don't change, so I'm going to bring those down. And my negative 5, I'm going to split into negative 7 and 2. Since the 2 matches better with the 2x, I'm going to put that. And since the negative 7 matches with this negative 7, I'm going to put negative 7x here. And just like we did before, anytime there's 4 terms, split it down the middle. factor the left, factor the right. So 2x is our greatest common factor. I'm left with x plus 1. Here, x plus 1 goes in the bubble. So to make that true, I multiply by -7. And then I rewrite the x plus 1 once, right? And whatever's left goes in the other bubble. So I have 2x minus 1 in the other bubble. Next thing I'm going to do is set them both equal to 0. So I have 2x minus 1 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. So I have add 1, so I get 2x is equal to 1. Is that a 1? That's not a 1, that's a 7. Good catch, Varghese. So that's a 7. This is supposed to be a 7. There we go. That's better. So 2x equals 7, right? Divide both sides by 2, and I'm going to get x is equal to 7 over 2 is one of my answers. And over here, when I set this equal to 0, I get x equals -1. So I have 7 halves, and I have -1 for my x. Since it has an x, right, has x's and y's, I need to solve for the solution set. So I'm taking my 7 halves and I'm plugging it into either one of my originals. So it's easier for me to plug it into the second one. So I take my calculator, do 11 minus 2 times 7 halves, and I'm going to get that y is equal to 4. I did it over here, down here already. So y is equal to 4. And when I take my -1 and I plug it in for my 11 minus 2x, right? When I store it in, I could just show you that one real quick. So I take my calculator, take -1, store it in for x, and I plug in either one of these two. So I plugged in 11 minus 2x, hit enter, and I get 13. So my y is equal to 13. So my 2 points are 7 halves, comma 4, and I have -1, comma 13. Those are my 2 answers. Okay. All right. Question 33. This is a 4-pointer. So we're starting 11,000 bacteria. That is our first amount. It's also over here. It says it doubles in population every 20 minutes. So we're going to take our time and divide this by 20, just so we know. All right. So it says initial, so remember this formula, A equals P, right? And then 1 plus or minus the R to the T. This is low-key the formula that we're going to use. So our first number is going to be 11,000 because that is our initial amount. And then we're going to look and see what happens to it. So it says it doubles, which means that our 1 plus our R here is 1 because it's 100% plus 100%, so that's 2. And then it's going to be raised to the T, but since it says every 20 minutes, we're going to take the time and divide it by 20, and that's going to be equal to my P of T. So P of T. So first step for part A, that would give you 2 points, is to go ahead and write that formula. Second part is now saying using P of T, so taking our P of T equals 11,000, 2 to the T over 20. So now they're telling us that instead of P of T, they want us to substitute in 1 million. So 1 with 6 zeros, okay, is what we're putting in for P of T. And now we have to solve this algebraically. So you could y1, y2 and see what the T is, but that would not give you full credit. That would still give you 3 out of the 4, but let's try to get all of them, okay? All right, so now we got to get this 11,000 over to the other side. So divide both sides by 11,000. 11,000. This cancels out. Cross out the zeros. Okay, so we have 1,000 divided by 11 is equal to 2 to the T over 20. The opposite of an exponent is a log. Remember this? So we're going to log both sides. Whatever you do to the left, you do to the right. And so now I gave you a little reminder right here, right? Remember when we have log of a to the c gets kicked to the front. Do you remember that? So it's c times log of a. So the same thing happens over here. This t over 20 gets kicked to the front. So t over 20, 2, right? Oh, sorry. I forgot the log. Log of 2 is equal to log of 1,000 over 11. So now we got to get this t by itself, right? There's a couple of things we could do at this point. We could divide both sides by log of 2, divide by log of 2, and so this cancels out. So I have t over 20 is equal to log of 1,000 over 11 divided by log of 2. And then to get rid of this divided by 20, I could multiply both sides by 20, multiply by 20. This cancels out. And this is something that I can easily just plug into my calculator. When I plug that into my calculator, I'm going to get that t is equal to about 130.13. Okay, 130.13. And the reason why I did that is because it says to the nearest hundredths of a minute. So I just went to the hundredths place. Okay. If you don't get how to plug that into the calculator, let me know, and I will help you. All right, so this next question is low-key straight graphing calculator. So you go to the graphing calculator and you type in the function that they tell you. They specifically want it from only from 0 to 3. If you do more than that, you could potentially lose some points, right? So we don't want to do that. So we're going to take our window and make our x min 0 and our x max 3. And then we're going to look at the table. And we only want to go from 0 to 3. We see that the high over here, there's a 12 there somewhere. So let's go ahead to window and let's make our y min 0. And since we saw 12, let's go a little bit more dramatic. Let's just put 20 and then hit graph. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the graph that we're given right here and we're going to literally sketch it on our paper. So 0, 0, right? So I went to my paper, 0, 0. I'm going to show you how to get that second part in a second. And then 1, 10. So I went to 1, I went to 10. 2, 12, right? You see that? And 3, 0. So what I did next is I went to table set, so second window, because yes, I have enough points to go ahead and graph, but I want to try to get some points also in the middle to make this more exact. So let's just say if I go by 0.5 and I go to my table again, you see how it says 0.5, 5.625. So instead of going right to 1, I can go to 0.5, right? So this is 0.5, 0.5625, 5.625. I can go ahead and estimate that, and I can get a couple of more points along this. And so that way my graph will be better, and I'll be able to earn more points. The second part says, what is the maximum volume? So what I did is I went to my calculator, hit second calc, and I want to find maximum, which is choice 4. So once it goes ahead and draws my graph for me, what I want to do is I want to go, you see this mountain peak right here? I want to go anywhere to the left, hit enter. I want to go anywhere to the right. We're going to hit enter again. And we're going to go to where we think it is. So it's somewhere around there. Hit enter. And it gives it to us, right? So this right here is our maximum. This is our volume, which is 12.6. That's how I got that answer. Okay, 12.6. All right. Next question, it's gonna make us do some division. As soon as I see the word quotient there, I know I'm gonna have to divide. Quotient is the answer to a division problem. So let me divide two things. I'm taking f of x and I'm dividing it by g of x. So 3x to the third minus 4x squared plus 2x minus 1. First thing I want to check for is 3, 2, 1, 0. Good. And then over here, x minus 4. Okay. So refreshing our memory about how to divide. First thing we want to do is how many times does 3x to the third go into x? And the answer to that is 3x squared. Okay. After you divide, the next thing we do is we multiply. So 3x squared times x is 3x to the third, and then you switch the sign. 3x squared times negative 4 is negative 12x squared, and you switch the sign. Don't forget to switch the sign. If you do it right, this will always cancel out. And what are we left with? We're left with 8x squared, and then after you subtract, you bring down. So we're going to bring down this plus 2x. And we do the same thing again, right? X goes into 8x squared how many times? 8x. 8x times x is 8x squared. Switch the sign. 8x times negative 4 is negative 32x. Switch the sign. So this cancels out, and we're left with 34x. Let's bring down that negative 1. And we do it one more time. X goes into 34x 34 times. 34 times x is 34x. Switch the sign. 34 times negative 4 is equal to 136. Negative 136. And then we have to switch the sign. So this cancels out, and we're left with 135 as our remainder. Okay. So what do we do with that? So this is our answer, or this is our quotient, 3x squared plus 8x plus 34. So I went ahead and wrote that down. And then I took my remainder, which is 135, put it on the top, and then the x minus 4. See this right here? This is what I'm dividing by, right? The x minus 4 goes on the bottom. So this is x minus 4. So there's our quotient, right? Here's our quotient right here, and there's my remainder. All right. And then it says, is x equals 4 a root of? So where are they getting the x equals 4? You see up here it says x minus 4. So what they did is they did x minus 4 equals 0. Add 4 to both sides, and they got x equals 4. So if it was a root, this remainder here would be 0, and it's not. So what I wrote is no, because f of x has a remainder, so that's why x equals 4 is not a root. Okay. This next question, we're almost done, by the way. This next question looks really difficult, but as soon as you see this middle 95%, the formula from the non-negotiable should come to mind. Mean plus or minus 2 times the standard deviation is all that should come to mind. So look and scan the problem for the mean and the standard deviation, and you should be able to find it right there. Okay, so now we're just going to plug this in. So 0.819 plus or minus 2 times the standard deviation, which is 0.053. So you could just take this and plug this into the calculator, right? 0.819 minus 2 times 0.053. When you do that in the calculator, you're going to get 0.713. And when you do 0.819 plus 2 times 0.053, you're going to get 0.925. And the interval, right, determine an interval is you just put the word 2 in between them, right? So you could write that as your answer, or 0.713 dash 0.925. Those are your, that's your interval. The next part of the question says they conducted their own survey and found that 70% supported the repeal. Explain why the organization should question the state officials' claim. So 70% as a decimal is 0.70, and we can tell that 0.70 is not in this interval here. So we could say no, and why? Because 0.70 does not fall within the interval. And forgive my chicken scratch, okay? That is question 36. We're almost done. So for question 37, this is a straight graphing calculator. Again, these are like the give me points, right? Like literally, here's a graph. I can plug it into my calculator and graph it. So remember, graph is not just going doo-doot, right? You have to actually like plot points. So A of X is this right here. B of X is this right here. you go to your table and you actually plot the points only from 0 to 100. So I want to actually show you something with this, right? So let me just go ahead and take my calculator. I'm going to show you one. Let me just reset my calculator so that way you'll see exactly what I'm doing. So it's not going to seem like magic to you. So I'm going to go to y equals right here. And you see this right here, the 15.7. So I'm going to type that in, parentheses, 0.98, close parentheses, to the x. So now this is key. You see this? They wanted me to graph it from 0 to 100 because right now if I just hit graph, it's only going to go till 10. From negative 10 to 10. I don't even want that. I don't want any of this negative side. Look, I'm not even seeing anything. Okay? So what am I going to do? Right? I'm going to go to my table. So second graph. And I'm going to see, you see my numbers are 15 something, right? It's not like hundreds. So it's like 15 something. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my window. My x's are right here from 0 to 100. So look what I'm going to do. 0, and then I'm going to go to my x max is 100. What is my scale going by, right? I'm going to go over here. Look, they already have given me a scale, right? It's going up by tens. So I'm going to make my scale go up by 10 so that way it matches, okay? And then I'm going to take my y's and I'm going to do something similar to it, right? So here's my y. It goes from 0 to, here's 20, that's 22. So I'm going to go here, change my y min from 0. I'm going to change my y max to 22. And my scale, you see how this is going up by 2? So I'm going to put 2 here. And now when I hit graph, I'm going to actually get something that I have to replicate on my graph, okay? So again, you're not just going to go doo-doo, okay? You're going to go to hit second, you're going to go to graph. I actually did a trick. You see how this is going up by tens? So I went second window and I changed my graph to go by 10 instead of by ones, and watch. Hit second graph. Look, it now goes from 0 to 10, then 20, right? So now this is easy for me to graph. So I went to 0, 15.7, 0, 15.7, boom, put a dot. 10, 12.828, 10, 12.828, right? It's between almost close to like 13. So I put a dot there, and I kept doing that all the way through, and I did the same thing for b of x. So that's how you graph using your graphing calculator, okay? All right, and you do the same thing for graph b of x, and then the next thing it asks you for the second part of it is see where they are equal to each other. So second trace, option number 5 is intersection. So I'm going to let the two of them graph. That's the first one, that's the second one. And then now you're going to go move the cursor. I'm hitting the left arrow. You're going to go down, go over to where, oh, it went left, it went away. Go to where they're about equal to each other, hit enter, 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 and it gives you the actual number, right? And it says to the nearest integer, so that's about 35, okay? For the last part, it says b of 100 minus a of 100. They want us to find that, so I hit second graph, which is my table. You see b of 100 is 4.02 and a of 100 is 2.08. I'm going to literally subtract those two numbers. And when I do 4, right, this is to the nearest integer. So 4 minus 2 is about 2. So I said 2 represents the difference in minutes of the average wait time where there are 100 CSRs, and CSR stands for customer service representatives, okay? So that's numbers, you know, the second part, parts 2 through 4. Great job. Talk to you soon. Let me know if you have any questions.